Welcome to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast, brought to you by TournamentPokerEdge.com, the only podcast dedicated exclusively to poker tournament strategy. Now here's your host, Clayton Fletcher.
Hello once again, everybody, and welcome to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast, sponsored by JockaCoaching.com. My name is Clayton Fletcher, and I am your host here in beautiful, sunny, expensive Paradise Island, Bahamas. Happy to be bringing you yet another episode of the world's longest running poker strategy podcast ever. I'm out here in the sun enjoying a nice family trip, little family reunion action down here in the Atlantic Ocean. I hope you all had a wonderful holiday. Happy New Year, everybody. Missed you guys last week, but took some time to be with family and friends and enjoy the holiday season. I want to get to our goals for 2026 and also take a look back on the goals that I had set for myself for this past year, 25. And as regular listeners to this podcast will know, I do not do New Year's resolutions. I prefer tangible, measurable, actionable goals. And so that's what we'll be talking about today. I think resolutions don't work, but short-term goals have long-term implications. And we're going to get to that in a minute. But first, I want to share the big news. As you heard at the very top of the episode, Jocka Coaching is back on as our sponsor. We're so happy to be partnering with Jocka Coaching. It is such a great website. You get coaching, you get training, you get videos, you get in-depth interaction with some of the greatest minds in the history of the great game of No Limit Hold'em and other poker variants. I'm so happy to be working with them. You guys can get a discount as well as a free trial period just by going to our website, jocka.poker/TPE. Check that out, guys. One of the best ways you can support this podcast is by supporting our sponsor, Jocka Coaching, jocka.poker/TPE. All right, let's talk about the goals that we set for 2025. Let's see which ones I hit, which ones I fell short of hitting, and everything in between. We had a goal to play in 60 live MTTs in 2025. This after playing 46 of them in 24, and I fell very short of this goal. I only hit 36 buy-ins in live MTTs in the year 2025. Now, in some ways, there were good reasons for this. Like, I made a lot of deep runs during the summer, which is, of course, when I played the vast majority of my live tournaments. So I was out there in Vegas for 7 weeks. I made a bunch of day twos. And even when I didn't make day two, sometimes I just played so late into the night on day one that I wasn't really up for playing again on the next day. And another key factor in those instances was simply the fact that I only had to buy in once, and my first buy-in would last so long. So when I say how many MTTs I want to play, I'm actually talking about how many buy-ins I want to do. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword. Like, if I hit the goal of reaching that 60 plateau, it might have been partly because things didn't go that well. I had a great year in these 36 buy-ins, a profitable year, mostly the WPT Venetian 5K that we talked about from the summer months, where I earned a profit of $42,000. There were other tournaments as well, notably one at the Wynn where I made day two and earned a score of something like 8,300 US dollars. And when all was said and done, I ended up winning $14,444 profit playing multi-table tournaments in the year 2025, just live, not online. Now let's look at the online. We had a goal for 2025 to play 400 online MTTs. This after playing 511 such tournaments in the year 2024. And the actual total for the year was 445. So I did reach my goal and then some. So I'm happy about that. Now, 330 of these tournaments were played on ACR, formerly known as America's Card Room, and the rest were played on other sites, primarily WSOP Online. Now, on ACR, I think the games are a bit tougher, and I managed to eke out a very small profit of $312. But I'll take it. At least we didn't lose on the site. And I won another $9,300 overall playing on other sites, mostly WSOP Online. So I had a profitable year, both in live and online tournament action. So very happy about that. We had another goal for the year, which was to get busy on the Twitch streets. Now, we know that in 2024, I streamed for 1 hour on Twitch. It was something I picked up right at the end of 24, and my goal was to really get into it in 2025. Now, to be fair, I didn't know what a reasonable, realistic goal for me in that year would have been. My first year really streaming on a regular basis, I set a goal of 200 hours. I fell very, very short, only logging 103 total streaming hours in 2025, but I streamed 29 times total for the year and made a few bucks doing that. I mean, Twitch isn't exactly paying my rent right now, but somewhat insignificant revenue stream right now that I'm hoping to build going forward. But yeah, I think I did pretty well, kind of getting the hang of it and joining the Twitch community. I also had a goal in 2025 to spend at least 150 hours studying in the year. This after logging 285 study hours back in 2024, kind of realistically not expecting to be able to do quite as many with my very busy, hectic schedule. But guys, I'm happy to say I actually spent 335 hours studying in 2025. So I was very dedicated to working on my game, and I think the results, do bear that out. I mostly was using GTO Wizard and, of course, the aforementioned Jaka Poker. Now, what I really like about that site, by the way, is it's kind of bite-sized. They'll just focus on one subject at a time, and they really try not to waste your time. It seems like the site itself is designed with the busy poker player in mind. This isn't for guys who have 5 and 6 hours at a time to spend the whole day working on their poker game. More like 20 or 30 minutes, bite-sized, very easily digestible training videos and coaching sessions that I think really suit somebody like me. And so I was able to do quite a few of them along with my work with the solver. So yeah, I'm a big fan of jakacoaching.com, and I spent a lot of time on the site back in 2025. Now, another goal we had set for the year was 250 hours of live cash. And I didn't get there, guys. I only spent 139 hours at the live cash game tables. I found that many times my cash game sessions were short. I played 2 or 3 hours at a time and then move on to something else. And that's kind of the luxury of cash, right? You don't have to sit there all day like you do in a tournament if it goes well. And so I think that freedom to leave may have inadvertently worked against me this year. And I think that one thing I want to do in the new year is try to stay a little bit longer in these cash games that I play. If you're not feeling tired and you still have an edge and you don't have to get up at the crack of dawn the next day, you might as well stay there and grind out a few more hours and get that win rate up. So that's something we'll talk about in a few minutes here. But lastly, I want to say, last but not least, our goal of 50 podcast episodes in 2025. And I'm glad to say, you guys, you noticed I did not put out an episode last week, but it was literally the first time in the whole year that I took a week off. That's right, we put out 51 episodes back in 2025, and I hope to do that again. So let's talk about 2026 and go through these areas again and talk about my goals, what I hope to accomplish in 2026. Guys, live MTTs, I think 60 was a little bit aggressive last year. I think 36 is too low for 26. I'm going to make it 45. Okay, I'll be happy in 2026 if I manage to eke out 45 buy-ins. Now, I'm not playing any poker here in the Bahamas these days, but next month I'm going to be in Florida. In February, I'll be in Cocoa Beach, Florida, the first week of February, which is Super Bowl weekend. And around that same time, somewhere else in Florida, there's a circuit event. And I'm certainly going to try to get to that and at least play a couple of the tournaments that are part of that. I believe it's Pompano Beach, Florida circuit event. And then later in Florida, I'll be in LA during the LAPC. So I'm sure I can get off to a better start this year than I did last year, where I really played hardly any tournaments at all before the summer came around. So this year, I'm going to be more intentional about playing poker tournaments throughout the year and not just during those concentrated weeks in the summer. All right, online MTTs, I think 445 is a great number. I'm going to try to do that many at least again in 2026. So just try to match the total that we put up in 2025. Stream hours, obviously 200 was a bit ambitious and 103 was pretty good. But I think this year I can get in the middle somewhere. Let's go for 125. I'm setting a goal of 125 stream hours. And I'd also like to stream at least 40 times in 2026 as opposed to the 29 that I did last year. All right, study hours, I think expecting to study another 300 hours in 26 is not realistic, but obviously 150 was a little too lenient for 25. So I'm going to set a goal for this year of 200 study hours. Let's see, live cash in 26. I think 139 is too low, but maybe 250 was too high of a goal to set last year. So this year I'm going to go 200. I think 200 is doable. We're going to play 200 live poker cash game hours at the tables. And of course, we're going to do the same number of episodes that we did this year. Let's run it back and do 51 more episodes of the Tournament Poker Edge podcast in 2026. Now, I want to hear what your goals are. What are you trying to accomplish in the new year? What are the realistic and measurable tasks that you hope to complete in the coming 12 months? You can find me on Twitter at Clayton Comic. You can also join our free TPE Discord. There's a link for that in the description of this podcast episode. All right, guys, let's move on. I want to look at a hand we talked about last week from the WPT Prime Championship as played in fabulous Las Vegas in the month of December 2025. I'm going to take another look at the same hand we talked about last time around, but this time I want to use GTO Wizard, which is my favorite solver of choice. It's extremely user-friendly, easy for a non-techie guy like me to get in there and figure out how to plug in my hands and figure out what a perfect robotic computer opponent would do in my shoes. And we're going to look at that hand again. Remember, the blinds were 600 and 1200 with a 1200 big blind ante, and we have 60K, so about 50 big blinds there. And we make it 2500 from middle position with the King of Diamonds, 10 of clubs. So King 10 offsuit, and then the big Nebraska guy called on my left, and the big blind came along as well. So 3 to the flop. First off, let's just check. Does the wizard want to open King 10? Of course it does. You have 50 big blinds. You got 2 big cards in middle position. You're going to open all these types of hands, King 10 included. So there's 6,000 in the middle, and the flop comes Queen of clubs, 10 of spades, 3 of spades. So Queen 10 tray with 2 spades, hero with King 10 off, no spade, and the big blind checks. I decided to fire 2,400, just under half the pot here, and both of my opponents call. So let's see whether the wizard wants to bet the king of diamonds, 10 of clubs in my shoes. And yes, the wizard does approve, but to be fair, it prefers a check. So we're betting this hand only 29% of the time, and the sizing is totally fine. And we're checking this hand 71% of the time. So I'll give myself credit for this one, but not that much because I could have done a little better. Now there's 13,000 in the middle, and the turn comes the king of hearts, giving me 2 pair on a board of queen, 10, tray, king with 2 spades. The big blind checks again. I decide to fire once more, betting 7,000 into 13,000, so just about half the pot. And the big guy on my left calls like he always does. And the big blind check raised me to 20,000. I made the call. Let's see what the wizard thinks about all of this. We're actually not supposed to bet our 2 pair very much in this spot. We actually want to check this hand 95% of the time and only bet kings and 10s 5% of the time. So the wizard barely approves my play. But let's see what the wizard thinks about this check raise and how we respond to it. Should we continue facing a check raise in this spot? And guys, the answer is no. The wizard wants to fold. I did not fold. So everything else I did in this hand is going to be a mistake. So I called the check raise and then folded when villain shoves the river. The river came the deuce of diamonds. By the way, the other player also called. And so this guy shoved, and then we both folded. So I really don't know what he was doing all this with. And it's hard to imagine just folding 2 pair, but you got to really think about the big blind's range for check raising. It's got to be a very, very strong range after the flop and turn have gone bet call. So for him to check raise, he's supposed to have a very strong hand. And so we're not supposed to call with the king 10 offsuit. And if you guys want to play with GTO Wizard and improve your game, be able to plug your own hands in and figure out what a perfect robot computer would do in your shoes, I've got a great deal for you. You can get a 24-hour trial period followed by 10% off of your first purchase just by using my affiliate link, our partner code, if you will. It's gtowizard.com/p/TPE. All right, guys, let's talk about one more hand from my recent trip to fabulous Las Vegas. I did play in the $800 seniors event at the Venetian Resort Casino Hotel and Spa. And I played this event partly because they had a huge guarantee on it. I think $500,000 or something for this $800 buy-in seniors only event. So let's talk about an interesting spot that I found myself in. The blinds were 500 and 1,000 with a 1,000 big blind ante. And I start this hand with 46,000 in my stack. Basic math, 46 big blinds. 2 players limp in from middle position, which I was seeing quite a bit of this in this event. I think I like seniors events, partly because they are so passive. I'm in the big blind with the queen of clubs, 5 of diamonds, and decide to just check and see a flop. So 3 of us see the flop, and it comes queen of spades, 9 of spades, deuce of hearts. So queen, 9, deuce. I decide to just lead right out. Here I go ahead and bet 3,000. And the next guy folds, but the other player, the cutoff, he hasn't been at my table very long, but he obviously forgot his headphones because he's been watching videos really loud. I really hate when people do that at the table. I don't know, when these cell phone companies switched it to where everybody needs to have Bluetooth and that you can't plug your headphones into your phone anymore, I think a lot of people, especially older people, like the players you might find in a seniors event, they just watch their phone on full volume, which is totally annoying. He's not that old, though. He's probably like mid-50s, so one of the younger seniors in the event. And I don't really know that much about him. He seems like he might be foreign. He hasn't been at my table very long. I do know he starts the hand with about 23,000 in his stack. I bet 3,000, and then there's a fold, and then he raised to 10,000, and now it's back on me. So, guys, I have Queen of Clubs, 5 of Diamonds on a board of Queen of Spades, 9 of Spades, Deuce of Hearts. And I just started thinking, what could he be doing this with? What is the range for him to limp in from late position after somebody else limped in first and now raising on this board? Queen of Spades, 9 of Spades, Deuce of Hearts. And I kind of determined that there's a good chance he's got a draw. I don't have any blockers at all. I have no spades. I don't have a jack or a 10 or anything else that would block a straight draw or a flush draw. And just not knowing the guy, other than the fact that he's the type of man who would watch videos on full volume at a crowded poker table, he struck me as the type that might want to bluff raise with a draw here. So if you think he has a draw and you're not planning on folding your top pair no matter what happens, you might as well stick it in now, which is what I did. And I end up losing half my chips on this hand. Villain turns over a king, queen offsuit, which is kind of a strange limp and also, in my opinion, a strange raise on this flop, but it sure worked out well for him. I ended up not making it to dinner break in this tournament, and so I ended up taking an offer overall in the live tournaments I played in December in fabulous Las Vegas. But the cash gains went well enough to make up for that, and I still managed to eke out a profit for the month despite the tournament futility. And that'll do it for this episode. Guys, I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure you subscribe. We now put all of our episodes on YouTube as well. You can join us there. Leave a nice review, all the things that every podcast host asks you to do. It helps us out a ton. And I want everyone to go to jaka.poker/TPE and claim your 7-day free trial of my favorite poker training site. You'll be so glad you did. And for everyone here at Tournament Poker Edge, Happy New Year. I'm Clayton Fletcher. Thank you so much for listening.
I wanna hold them like they do in Texas, please. Fold them, let them hit me, raise it, baby, stay with me. Luck and intuition, play the cards with babes to start. And after she's been hooked, I'll play the one that's on her heart.